390, it is down 1.9%. Recapping stocks higher, S&P up 10, up 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of Power continues. And once again, here's your host, David Weston.
Thanks so much, Charlie Pellet. From the Interactive Brokers Studio, this is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio. President Trump tweeted earlier today that some in the news media are trying to make the coronavirus look as bad as possible, panicking the markets, according to him. But he says the U.S. is actually in, quote, great shape. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, on the other hand, worries that the administration has gotten rid of some of the key people to deal with the crisis and hasn't replaced them yet.
Hopefully we can make up for the loss of time, but it'll have to have the professionals in place, the resources that are adequate, and not be using scare tactics about people coming back to our country.
So it seems a good time to review exactly what the U.S. is doing to make sure coronavirus doesn't get worse in the United States. And Alex Ruoff of Bloomberg Government has been reporting on just this question. Welcome now. So, Alex, thanks so much. We're going to hear from the president at 6 p.m. Eastern time today. What do we expect to hear?
Well, I think the president has been pretty adamant and pretty focused on sort of trying to dampen fears, sort of trying to say, look, everything is going really well. And, that message is getting stepped on a little bit by, his own administration, by the CDC, by public health professionals who are regularly warning, this is more this virus is going to spread. This is going to be an issue. And I think at 6 p.m. we may see an attempt to sort of let Trump try to, put something out showing what they're going to do in response. And there's a lot of questions about what exactly how he's going to present that, or at least how he's going to present the sense that we have this under control.
So what are they doing behind the scenes, do we know? As I understand, Alex Azar, the head of HHS, is sort of the point person on this, right? Well, what is he doing? Who does he have working with him?
Well, Azar is the head of this task force the White House put together on the coronavirus, to really discuss their options here. The CDC has been, of course, at the front of this. People like Robert Redford. They're people who are in charge of, the public health response, the testing, the sides of this, the part of this of finding new disease areas, working with local public health officials, essentially trying to keep a containment on the virus as it is there, and coordinating a lot of the local public health work. And they're really the front and center of this. And then in the White House, there's a policy side that says, how do we work on vaccine development? How do we work on, public messaging? And those are not necessarily always working in tangent here. And that's been where the criticism from the Hill has come, is this sense that they're not all on the same page. Not everyone's getting the same message.
So there was an apparatus put in place, as I understand it, back when the Ebola crisis happened over in Africa. And by and large, the Trump administration, I believe, has done away with that apparatus. It went right into the White House. Ron Klain actually was the head person for it. But there was a substantial presence at DHS and elsewhere. Is there validity to the criticism that, in fact, we've gotten rid of a lot of people that are critical to dealing with the coronavirus?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Trump administration has not made, they've not really valued filling these roles, putting coordinators and whole of government people, filling those roles and staffing them and putting them down. Definitely, the Trump administration, this is very partial of the way they approach government, which is that we sort of don't need these convening roles because it implies that government's going to come in and take in on this side. That is, that's how the Obama administration handled issues like this. Big convening roles that were meant to, again, like what they always call a whole of government approaches, the side of we need to roll out all of these coordinated work. And and I think it was 2018, Trump ordered the National Security Council's Global Health Security Unit shut down. He wanted this kind of reassignment of people like Rear Admiral Timothy Zeimer and the team within the agency whose job it was to surveil this. They've also, lawmakers have long been pointing this out. They've looked at shutting down programs that were specifically designed for finding the next coronavirus, for pulling these out. And they've often thought of them as, the Trump administration is not minced words. They've thought of these as wasted money, wasted effort. And, that's been their perspective. And, without this crisis, this is probably an issue you and I would not be talking about. But once this comes up, it's like, well, why did you shut all that down? And this is, their argument there. They're saying, well, we still don't think we need them. And that's what Alex Azar said. He says that we won't need one of those. We don't need a coronavirus czar. I'm the person in charge of this, as we put them there.
So that was going to be my question. Are they rethinking that? But it sounds like, no, they're going to stick to their guns and do it this way. If you're a state or a local health official, where are you looking for guidance at this point?
Well, so kind of an interesting aspect to this, and something I found, especially reporting in Congress in this, is that they are looking toward the CDC, through public health officials, through essentially, government and public health officials, government officials, and people within, basically scientists within the government, to guide them, to provide them assistance. And they are saying so far that that's actually going well, that local officials have been getting information they want. And a lot of the criticism has basically been directed at the very top, at Trump himself, at some of his officials, like Kudlow yesterday came in and said things were so airtight. And it's that disconnect that lawmakers are really railing against. And when we talk to appropriators here at Congress, they're saying, look, Trump himself is saying everything's fine. We only need, $1.25 billion of extra money. We can shift some more money and tackle this. Meanwhile, the CDC is warning against an outbreak. And we are saying that when we talk to public health people who are on the ground, who have a good sense of this and are coordinating, what they're saying is we need a lot more money, we need a lot more focus, and I think that's where they're putting their attention.
Okay, we're looking forward to President Trump at 6 o'clock this evening. Thank you so much to Alex Ruoff of Bloomberg Government. Coming up, President Trump says 2 Supreme Court justices should recuse themselves from any cases involving him. We talk with legal ethics expert Rebecca Rothfeld of New York Law School. That's going to be next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio. Coming up, President Trump says 2 Supreme Court justices should recuse themselves.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. U.S. stocks are posting modest gains. The Dow is up 60 points, S&P up 9, the NASDAQ up 55. Shares of Carnival Cruise are at a 5-year low. As Morgan Stanley says, the coronavirus will probably reduce demand for cruises more than any other forms of travel. And Papa John's is falling the most in a decade. The company ended last year with about 50 fewer locations in North America and closed 50 of its more than 200 locations in China due to the coronavirus outbreak. Starbucks will begin selling plant-based meat alternatives made by Beyond Meat at coffee shops in Canada. And imagine a sugar shortage. It could happen after bad weather destroyed sugarcane crops in the U.S., Mexico, and Thailand. Officials are warning that already tight U.S. sugar supplies could get worse. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation
31st of March 2020 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
The famous five were at home discussing their next adventure. Let's visit Tower Bridge, said Dick. Or Cardiff Castle, added Julian. St. Michael's Mount, cried Anne. Dick jumped up. Wherever we're going, we'll need to leave right now. Relax, said George. It's faster than you think by train. Anyway, we can't go yet. You're still in your pyjamas. Fast journeys across our network. Adventures are closer than you think. Great Western Railway. Adventures start here. Terms and conditions apply. Select routes only.
Fill the trolley with your favourite brands on rollback at Asda. A 38-pack of Fairy Non-Bio capsules was £8.50, now £5.75. And the Lenore Gold Fabric Conditioner was £4, now £2.50. Big brands, small prices. Don't compromise. Asda. Save money, live better. Selected stores subject to availability. Lenore 1.925 litres. Ends 18th of March.
The government and the NHS are prepared to deal with coronavirus. You can help too. The best way to protect yourself and others is to wash your hands with soap and water or use a sanitizer gel regularly throughout the day. Catch your cough or sneeze in a tissue, in it, and wash your hands. If you have recently arrived back from specified areas, follow the returning traveller advice. Check the list of areas and find out more at nhs.uk/coronavirus. You're listening to the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry she wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time she runs out of milk. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings account. Saving the change every time she runs out.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 1061 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Balance of Power with David Weston.
Coming up on Balance of Power, President Trump dials up his challenge to the federal judiciary, saying that Justice Ginsburg and Justice Sotomayor should recuse themselves from any cases involving him. We're joined by my colleague June Grasso to talk about the law and practice of judicial recusal. But first, let's get a market check with Charlie Pellett.
All right, I thank you very much, David Weston. Again, happy Wednesday. We have got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all trading higher right now. Equities are recovering from a midday swoon. They are advancing for the first time in 5 days as investors digest fresh evidence of the widening coronavirus outbreak. The dollar advanced right now. We've got the 10-year up 6.30, yield 1.33%. S&P up 7, up 0.2. The Dow up 38, up 0.1%. NASDAQ up 48. That is a gain of 0.5%. Gold up 0.4%, 16.42 the ounce. Crude oil slumping again today, down another 1.2%, 49.30 a barrel. Brent 54.10, lower by 1.6%. New home sales advanced in January, and with that story, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
Home prices in major U.S. cities rose at a faster pace in December, up 2.85% from a year earlier. That's the most since January 2019, reflecting stronger demand and lean inventory. Phoenix, Charlotte, and Tampa led the gain. Looking ahead, low mortgage rates could help offset rising home prices. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Wall Street isn't letting Disney off the hook just yet, having pulled a switcheroo of Bob Iger for Parks chairman Bob Chapekis, the new CEO. Shares in the entertainment company reaching a 10-month low, looking at Disney down now by 3.6%. Hermes International CEO says the retailer is seeing a, quote, potential normalization in China, even though it's too early to predict when the market will recover from the coronavirus outbreak that is hammering luxury spending. And Delta Airlines temporarily reducing the number of weekly flights it operates between the U.S. and Seoul, South Korea. Delta shares down today by 2.4%. United lower by 4.7%. And American Airlines Group down now by 2.5%. Recapping Stocks holding on to a gain, barely. S&P up 4, up 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that, David Weston, is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Justice Sonia Sotomayor last week dissented from an order staying a lower court injunction before the case was finally decided, saying the government is asking too often for such extraordinary rulings and instead should let the cases work their way through the lower courts. President Trump evidently interpreted Justice Sotomayor's dissent as indicating a bias against his administration, and he said both she and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg should recuse themselves from anything he called Trump-related.
I just don't know how they can not recuse themselves for anything having to do with Trump or Trump-related. The right thing to do is that. Now, as a Supreme Court justice, there's a different standard, but at the same time, I think it's a higher standard.
To take us through the law surrounding recusal of Supreme Court justices, we welcome now my colleague June Grasso and Professor Rebecca Roy-Fee of New York Law School. Professor Roy-Fee is an expert on legal ethics. So great to have you with us, Professor. Let's start with the basics. If the president is serious that, in fact, the two justices, Sotomayor and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, should recuse themselves, how do you go about asking justices, I guess politely, to recuse themselves?
So this is usually done by letter brief, and it's not filed as part of the docket. It's sort of an informal kind of procedure.
And so they write a letter to the clerk of the court, presumably, to be hand on to the Supreme Court justice saying, "Dear Justice so-and-so, please recuse yourselves." What is the process from there on out? What is the law surrounding this about when they need to recuse themselves?
So the law is a little bit frustratingly vague. It says that judges, and that includes justices of the Supreme Court, should recuse themselves when their impartiality could be reasonably questioned. So you really have to look to patterns and practice in order to figure out when it's reasonable to question a judge's impartiality. Should recuse themselves when their impartiality.
So in this case, in her dissenting opinion, Sotomayor said basically that what was troubling was that the government is seeking this extraordinary relief. And in point of fact, many times, more than other administrations, according to some of the stats that I've seen, the Trump administration has taken the step of bypassing the appellate court process, the normal process, running to the Supreme Court and claiming it's an emergency. And the court has granted the administration's request several times. I can think of the Wall case, where they're allowing the administration to go forward, billing the Wall with funds from the Pentagon and the Defense Department. So does she have a point? The administration's request several times. I can think of the Wall case.
I'm sorry, is the request valid?
Just talk a little bit about her dissenting opinion and what she actually was dissenting from.
I see. So she's making her statement is a statement about the law and about process and how process should proceed. And there are arguments on either side. I think she's certainly right in noting a different pattern and practice. I think she said, if I remember correctly, the controversial point that she said is that these decisions of the lower courts tend to be benefiting one particular litigant. And when she said that, she was referring to Donald Trump. Now, that does not mean that she is in any way biased, and I think the allegation that she's biased because she comes to that conclusion is not supported in any way by the evidence, and certainly not by the precedent that we have for when justices do, in fact, recuse themselves from cases.
Should there be more rules? Should the justices have some kind of guidelines beyond those that the normal judges have for when they should recuse themselves? Because often you'll see a case where, for example, a justice might have stock interests in a company and then later on will recuse themselves. But we sort of don't know what's happening.
Right. And essentially what happens is Supreme Court justices say to themselves that the precedent that governs lower court judges doesn't govern them. And that's because if they step aside, no one can fill their shoes. So for a circuit court judge or a district court judge, you can always have a different judge sit by designation and fill their spot. But for the Supreme Court, if a justice is recused, then that spot remains empty. And you could have a situation in which you had one justice recusing him or herself and then a 4-4 decision. So there really do need to be, I think, different rules. The way that it's viewed now through the norms that have developed over time is that Supreme Court justices have to recuse in a narrower set of circumstances because of that reality.
The Sotomayor situation is unusual because she dissented. Everybody knows exactly what she said, and as June said, it's a little hard to see that that's a prejudice against any particular litigant. The situation with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice Ruth Bader, is a bit different. As I understand it, while President Trump was campaigning before he was president, she gave an interview in which she called him a faker, and when she was actually challenged on it, she did not back down. She said he was a faker. Is that right, June? You look.
I think she apologized later for it. After she came under some scrutiny.
But she said she meant what she said. So is that a more colorable claim, at least? I mean, that is sort of an ad hominem description of the president.
Yes. I mean, I think it was highly inappropriate. I don't think Supreme Court justices should be out in public making those kinds of statements at all. But that said, given what has happened in the past, I don't think that would call for recusal, and that's partially because of the case that I think is probably the most famous recusal case, which is when Justice Scalia refused to recuse himself after going on that duck hunting trip with Cheney.
Yes.
And what Justice Scalia said in that case, and I think he had a point here, is that this is not, he may have some form of friendship with Cheney, but this is not a case against Cheney in his personal capacity. This is an official case. And so, in a way, this is the reverse, because with that case, we were talking about a coziness, a friendship between Scalia and Cheney, and this is the opposite, an expression of dislike or distaste for the president. And I think that what he's calling for her to recuse in every case involving his administration seems really far from what the recusal rules are intended to cover. So if this were a case, some personal case against him rising to the Supreme Court, then I think he'd have a better claim based on her statements earlier. But to me, that this is not the kind of thing that the recusal rules are meant to cover.
June, of course, not that there are any personal cases involving President Trump.
No, I'm trying to think of any cases that are coming before the court.
Exactly. Might have one of those before we're done here.
His timing is pretty bad here.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you so much to my colleague June Grasso and to Professor Rebecca Roiphe of New York Law School. Coming up, authorities around the world are racing to get on top of the coronavirus epidemic. We talk with Dr. Jennifer Nuzzo of Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security about what we know and what we don't know about the spread of the virus. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
If you're going to have NHS dental treatment, don't assume you can claim it for free. Not all benefits entitle you to free treatment. And if you claim when you're not entitled, you could face a penalty charge of £100, plus the cost of your treatment. Thankfully, the NHS Eligibility Checker will help you find out if you can claim for free. Then next time you're at the dentist, you'll know exactly which box to tick. Search Check Before You Tick online today.
The famous five were at home discussing their next adventure. "Let's visit Tower Bridge," said Dick. "Or Cardiff Castle," added Julian. "St. Michael's Mount," cried Anne. Dick jumped up. "Wherever we're going, we'll need to leave right now." "Relax," said George. "It's faster than you think by train. Anyway, we can't go yet. You're still in your pajamas." With faster journeys across our network, adventures are closer than you think. Great Western Railway. Adventures start here. Terms and conditions apply. Selected routes only.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
This is Bloomberg Radio. We're going now live to remarks being given by Governor Andrew Cuomo.
You'll see a continuing spread of this virus. It's highly probable that we will have people in New York State who test positive. New York is the front door internationally. We have people traveling here from all across the world. You see how it's spreading and affecting different countries, Italy recently, but that will continue. And I think it's highly probable, and no one should be surprised when we have positive cases in New York. Our operating paradigm is always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. We've done that all across the board, and it's held us in good stead. We're coordinating all the relevant agencies from the state, Department of Health, Emergency Management, the Port Authority is here that runs the airports, and we're working with the hospitals all across the state, and Ken Rasky has been a great partner in that. We are also incorporating lessons we've learned. This is not the first time we've gone through a situation like this. Remember, we had the situation with Ebola at one time that caused great concern. And we went through that situation. We went through SARS. We went through the Zika virus, the H1N1 virus, Legionnaire's disease we had to deal with. So we've gone through a number of public health emergencies that we have dealt with, and each one seems new and unique. But we've handled situations like this in the past, and we're handling this one also. Some specific actions we're going to take. We'll be sending an emergency supplemental appropriations bill up next week to the legislature, asking for an additional $40 million as an emergency supplemental appropriation for the Department of Health. That, again, is to err on the side of caution. We want to make sure the Department of Health has all the equipment that they would need. Obviously, there's an international rush now to get the right equipment, the right masks, gowns, gloves, etc. Turns out that China is one of the main manufacturers of this equipment, which obviously makes it a little more...
We've been listening to Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York give remarks live about the coronavirus. And the governor said that it is likely that it will appear in New York. It's highly probable, he said. We have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. He said we've had situations before, like with Ebola and with SARS. We've dealt with them. And he's now listing some specific actions they're taking, including an emergency supplemental appropriations bill going up next week for $40 million for equipment to deal with the problem. So that's Governor Andrew Cuomo. That is coming after the CDC yesterday warning that it will appear in the United States. We should be ready for community-wide exposure. And we have, of course, President Trump speaking at 6 p.m. this evening from the White House along similar lines. Welcome now an expert in the science of the virus. Jennifer Nuzzo is senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and associate professor at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. So, Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. The CDC said yesterday to us it's a matter of when, not if. Now we have Governor Cuomo saying it's coming to New York. I suspect we'll hear something like that from President Trump this evening. What do the experts know that we don't?
Well, I think you're hearing what the experts know, which is an expectation that we will see cases here in the United States if, in fact, there aren't already cases. We haven't really done the kind of aggressive testing that other countries have done to know for sure if the virus is not already here. But nonetheless, assuming that it isn't beyond just the limited cases we found to date, we should very much expect that we will see cases and that it would likely spread in communities throughout the country.
So what do we know at this point about how it is transmitted? Is it simply through the air, or are there other ways of being transmitted? And how communicable is it? How contagious is it?
Well, what we believe to be the case for most of the infections that have happened is that symptomatic people who are coughing and sneezing, that have virus in their system, that they propel that virus either forward through droplets directly onto people or onto surfaces that people then touch. We think that that's probably the largest driver of transmission in communities. There are some questions whether people can transmit it before their infection begins. There are also questions about whether other sources of transmission are possible. But I think for the most part, we should assume that this droplet transmission will be the predominant mode of transmission. In terms of how contagious it is, it's still a little bit uncertain, but it seems as though an infected person, depending on how social they are and how many people they come in contact with, can infect, a number of individuals.
And what do we know about lethality? You and I have talked about this in the past. Have we learned more about it? Because I'm hearing increasingly that it sort of breaks down. Some people, it's like a virus, like any other virus you get, a flu virus, and it goes away. But there's some subset that it gets deep into the lungs and really can be much more dangerous.
Yeah, so 80% of the cases reported, or a little bit over 80%, are thought to have mild infections, and this is just of the reported cases. It's possible that there are many, many more mild cases out there that we just haven't found. But of the reported cases, 80% have had mild symptoms, and then the remaining 20 have either had sort of severe illness or critical illness, and those are two different categories. And then in terms of the number of reported cases that have died, if you just do the simple math, it's still at about 2% globally, with higher percentages in Wuhan, China, and lower percentages outside of China. So we're still trying to understand whether that calculation is accurate. I believe that it probably isn't accurate, because I do think it's highly probable that there are many more mild cases out there that we just simply aren't seeing. And if we were able to see them and we tried to do the math, we would come up with a lower case fatality ratio. But nonetheless, given the uncertainty, and even if it is lower than what we're seeing, just given the ability of this virus to spread and how quickly it's spreading, and the potential for multiple countries to be affected, just even small percentages multiplied by that many people can have important impacts for healthcare response and public health response.
So we have the CDC giving us updates. We just heard from Governor Cuomo in New York. We're going to hear from the president later today. What about people who run large organizations, and as they think about their people, their employees, what advice would you give them about what to say to their employees, or what steps could be taken to at least reduce the risk?
So there are a few things. One is just in the category of what people can do to reduce the likelihood that they personally will become infected, just assuming that the virus is around them. And those are the kinds of things that we stress for other respiratory viruses like influenza. So washing your hands and covering your cough and staying home if you're sick, trying not to be around sick people. Those are going to be important messages to deliver so that employees in particular can know how to protect themselves. Then there's a larger question of whether employees should travel and where they should go, et cetera. And that's going to be a little bit trickier, because we don't have great knowledge of where in the world the virus is circulating at any one point, and we're probably always going to have lagged information. I think probably even more important is the uncertainty about how governments will respond. And so I think it's really important to stay on top of, one, the travel advisories, because even if there isn't as much risk to get infected from traveling somewhere, we still have to wonder about whether governments will change their response. And I wouldn't want employees to kind of get inadvertently caught up in quarantines or other movement restrictions.
Yeah, exactly. And the quarantine is obviously the big question. We've seen that in China. We've seen it elsewhere, now going on in northern Italy as well. And I think that's very much on everyone's mind, whether we will have to have quarantines here, which I suppose at this point we can't rule out.
Well, I think we're rapidly approaching the point. I actually think we've already approached this point where the quarantines are no longer going to be realistic or even feasible.
Interesting. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer Nuzzo. She's a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. I should say that the Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. So that does it for Balance of Power for today on Bloomberg Radio. I'm David Weston, and now it's time for Bloomberg Business Week coming up next.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
How should investors be positioning? Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
The famous five were at home discussing their next adventure. Let's visit Tower Bridge, said Dick. Or Cardiff Castle, added Julian. St. Michael's Mount, cried Anne. Dick jumped up. Wherever we're going, we'll need to leave right now. Relax, said George. It's faster than you think by train. Anyway, we can't go yet. You're still in your pyjamas. With faster journeys across our network, adventures are closer than you think. Great Western Railway. Adventures start here. Terms and conditions apply. Selected routes only.
You know what it's like when you can't find your debit card? Panic. That's what it's like. Until you realise, as a Halifax Visa debit card holder, that you can freeze your card on the spot. Control your Halifax Visa debit card with the Halifax mobile app. Easy as.
You can only freeze certain transaction types. Terms and conditions apply.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio, streaming on YouTube. Welcome to Bloomberg Business Week. It is Wednesday, February 26, 2020. Carol Masser, my co-host Jason Kelly on assignment. Joining me for the next few hours, Bloomberg News Global Macro Strategist Vince Signorella. And Vince, we are all about the virus, especially as we wait for President Trump. 6 p.m. Wall Street time, we're going to get an update from him and health officials about kind of where we are in the U.S. when it comes to the virus.
Yeah, and I'm very curious if he plays it down as he has been, where the rest of the U.S. government and government officials have been going exactly the opposite direction.
And just coming up, New York Governor Cuomo talking about New York is ready and expecting it to come certainly to this state. All right, lots of virus talk over the next few hours. Let's get you caught up, though, on the trading action. Let's head on over to Charlie Bell.
All right, I thank you very much. Let me get right to the numbers. I'll tell you why and what's going on with the numbers, but here's where we stand. S&P now down 18. That's a drop of 0.6%. The Dow is down 180 now, a drop of 0.7%. NASDAQ slumping 22 points, a drop there of 0.3%. Last hour, we had stocks higher barely. Then we got a report that 83 people in New York's Nassau County being monitored for possible coronavirus exposure. Governor Cuomo then held the news conference as one possible virus case still pending. He also said 27 possible virus cases were explored. All came back negative, but he does say, Governor Cuomo, saying he expects an eventual case of the virus in New York State. Again, lots of fast-moving developments. Stay with Bloomberg for the very latest. 48.46 on WTI. Brent 53.17, down 3.2%. Recapping stocks lower. Our coverage continues. S&P down 14, down 0.5. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, now you're up to speed. Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Masser, along with Vince Signorella. Jason Kelly is off today. So, Vince, coming up over the next few hours here on Business Week, we're going to stay on the virus from a few different angles. We're going to talk about the impact on chip stocks, also on M&A, and then on the travel industry. We're going to do a deep dive with the CEO of Trivago. They have a front seat to what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That one really, really interests me. I mean,
me too.
You know, all the people you talk to about the virus, the big story is, well, you know, businesses delayed, not destroyed, but travel, one of the businesses that people point to as being destroyed and not being able to come back.
Right.
Hearing from people getting cancellations of trips to Europe from colleges across the United States now. So lot of things to talk about with
All right. So we're going to do a deep dive with him. We've also got the story in the magazine this week, the Reddit forum with nearly 1 million users. It's a force when it comes to the stock market, often bucks the trend. So this will be an interesting one to talk to. And then a couple of stocks we're watching. Disney on news, Bob Iger stepped down as CEO. And then we have L Brands earnings after the closing bell. So
The Disney thing interests me, the timing of it. Yeah. And the stock's been down something like 8 out of the last 10 sessions or so. It's feeling a little bit, investors feeling a little bit uncomfortable perhaps with the timing of the change.
All right, we're going to talk more about investors' overall focus on what's going on in the markets today. And you're listening to Business Week, brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. Let's learn more on today's market action. With us, Gina Martin-Adams, Chief Equity Strategist at Bloomberg Intelligence, along with Dave Wilson, Stocks Editor. That's my peanut butter getting caught in my throat from an hour ago. Stocks Editor at Bloomberg News in our interactive broker studio. I'm still getting over a cold. It isn't pretty. Gina, come on in. How do you assess what we're seeing in the markets today?
Yeah, so I think that investors, very brave investors who thought, look, we had a pretty significant reset over the last 4 days. We had more than a 7% drop in the S&P 500. Mm-hmm. I may as well start averaging in because I can't time a bottom, I think is what we saw earlier today. Which is rational, right? You can't time an equity market bottom. It's very sentiment oriented. And frankly, the valuation destruction that we had over the course of the last 4 days did put multiples back into our modeled range, where they had kind of flown way above our modeled range for most of February. So we do have a reasonable multiple on stocks. I think, however, as the news continues to come out with respect to the coronavirus spreading, we have to expect persistent downward estimate revision. And this is where the market, I think, is going to struggle for the next several weeks. Is our model says we get 2% earnings growth this year, and analysts still think we get 8%. And we're modeling for a contraction in durable goods orders. We're modeling for persistent weakness in commodity prices. Yeah, we're modeling for relatively weak conditions to occur over the course of at least the next couple of quarters. And estimates are still a little too optimistic.
I'm just looking right now at tech, NASDAQ, outperforming the 3 major averages. Given the virus situation, how do you square that away? Is that more of people perhaps just buying on average and buying that dip?
Well, I think if you think about tech, you were talking earlier, Vince, about how some of this income is totally destroyed and some will get recouped. Tech is one of the industries where you get a recoup.
Yeah.
Right? The destruction is largely in industrials, consumer discretionary, maybe some energy and materials. But tech is a recoup kind of story. And so I think especially for the communication stocks, which maybe, people sitting at home have to do something. Mm-hmm. They're going to use their internet service. They're still going to they're still going to consume content. They're still going to spend on communications stocks, which some people call tech. Facebook and Google are communications stocks, right? Netflix is a communications stock. And then for tech equipment and, some of the more cycle sensitive groups, if they were going to purchase it this quarter and they can't, they're probably going to purchase it next quarter or the quarter after when business gets back to usual.
But you can't take a cruise that, you can't take a cruise you're going to take in January. You can't kind of replace that. You can maybe take it later on, but still that's lost income. Yep. Dave, come on in because we still continue to get some earnings. What are you seeing about the market environment that you think our audience needs to know about?
Good thing you mentioned the cruise, because if you looked early in the day, you saw the cruise lines, you saw the airlines with some early gains. Now you look at the S&P 500 and you see Carnival, Royal Caribbean, and Norwegian Cruise Line, worst performers on the day in the index. And then you see United Airlines and you see the travel company Expedia. It's more of the same here. And if anything, it's intensifying. And the other thing that kind of jumps out when you look at the travel stocks is Sabre. Mm-hmm. This is a travel reservation network.
Right.
When you talk about how numbers have to come down, they're looking at a first quarter where earnings per share may fall by more than half from what analysts' average estimate was in a Bloomberg survey going into their preliminary effect of the coronavirus on their business. So, it just goes to show you how extreme it may get in some cases in terms of the destruction of business here that you're talking about.
Anybody stand out as being in danger if this persists, Dave, that could fall off the shelf?
I don't know about in danger.
You mean like close shop?
Well, not close shop, but get to that point where really limit business.
I mean, you got to understand that if you think about like the airlines and the cruise lines, they've had a pretty good past few years. And actually, I'll be talking about the airlines more next hour with my chart of the day and how
Warren Buffett's investments in that industry are faring. Suffice it to say, there's a reason why he called himself an aeraholic back in the day.
Gina, I want to fast forward 4 hours. We're going to be all talking about President Trump and that event. What are you looking for? As someone who watches the equity markets, trying to get an idea of the parameters when this all kind of comes to an end, what do you want to hear from him?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. I don't know if I'll be watching it that closely for sort of equity market assurances, right? I think obviously you would like to know that we're prepared, but just the idea that we're going to have something like this occur in a broader outbreak in the U.S. is pretty terrifying for investors thinking about what the earnings outlook will look like. I think everybody would love to hear the president say that we're relatively insulated and relatively prepared, but right. I don't know really what that means in the grand scheme of things. Does it really mean anything for the earnings outlook? Being prepared isn't going to prevent losses from occurring.
It's still kind of a great thing to say. Like what does it mean for somebody who's running a company? What do I have to do? Do workers go home? Do I stop?
Yeah.
Right? What's the impact? All right, we're going to leave it there. Guys, thank you so much. Gina Martin-Adams, Chief Equity Strategist at Bloomberg Intelligence, in our interactive broker studio, along with Dave Wilson, Stocks Editor, who'll be along a little bit later on with that aforementioned chart of the day. Let's get the Bloomberg Business Week bite of the day. Vince, one number that tells us a lot. Today's number, it's nice and easy. It's 1.
Even I can count that high.
According to Glassdoor, Raleigh, North Carolina has been named the best U.S. city for employment. The recruiting website announced the 25 best cities for jobs in 2020. These cities stand out across 3 key factors: hiring opportunity, cost of living, and job satisfaction. Pittsburgh came in second, Indianapolis, Memphis, and Cleveland rounding out the top 5. So that's where you have to go. Good place to work.
Pittsburgh, I think, is amazing, going from an iron city, if you will, to the number 2, and it's an intellectual, industrial,
right,
tech town.
All right, we got to get to world and national news headlines, and over to Bob Moon we go. Hey, Bob.
Carol, Vincent, crews scrubbed everything from money to buses, military bases on high alert, and quarantines enforced today from a beachfront resort in the Atlantic to a remote island in the Pacific, as the world works to halt the fast-spreading virus that for the first time has now counted more new cases outside China than inside the country where the epidemic originated. At a news conference in the past hour, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo issued an alert for residents to be ready for the virus to spread here at home.
New York is the front door internationally. We have people traveling here from all across the world, and I think it's highly probable, and no one should be surprised when we have positive cases in New York.
Worries extend increasingly to the Olympics, 5 months away, but not far enough off to keep people from wondering if it would go on as planned. Members of Congress of both parties threatened action to prevent the Pentagon from shifting budget funds without authorization, as it does so again to construct a wall on the Mexican border. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Capitol Hill.
Defense Secretary Mark Esper defended the border spending, responding to Representative Susan Davis.
The president has determined that we have a national emergency on our southwest border. To deal with that emergency, we need a barrier system. Homeland security is in the national defense strategy.
The word border only appears once in the national defense strategy, and it's about Russia violating sovereign borders.
The Pentagon is also diverting money to upgrading nuclear weapons and asking Congress for more in the next budget. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
If morning is not your favorite part of the day, then maybe you're not listening.
We finally start to make a move.
Tom Keene.
What would you expect from Bezos next?
Jonathan Farrow.
How uncomfortable should central banks be with this situation?
Morning should be good for you.
We had no idea where this would head on that morning after.
Bloomberg Surveillance. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at Doctors Without Borders.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Will your summer sound like this?
Train is delayed.
Or this?
Evening, everybody.
This.
Assistant required.
Or this. This. Or this!
Make it a summer of Amex and do more with American Express experiences. With exclusive pre-sale tickets for Somerset House Summer Series, Wimbledon and British Summertime in Hyde Park. Search Why Amex. Subject to availability, terms apply.
The famous five were at home discussing their next adventure. Let's visit Tower Bridge, said Dick. Or Cardiff Castle, added Julian. St. Michael's Mount, cried Anne. Dick jumped up. Wherever we're going, we'll need to leave right now. Relax, said George. It's faster than you think by train. Anyway, we can't go yet. You're still in your pajamas. With faster journeys across our network, adventures are closer than you think. Great Western Railway. Adventures start here. Terms and conditions apply. Selected routes only.
The government and the NHS are prepared to deal with coronavirus. You can help too. The best way to protect yourself and others is to wash your hands with soap and water or use a sanitizer gel regularly throughout the day. Catch your cough or sneeze in a tissue, bin it, and wash your hands. If you have recently arrived back from specified areas, follow the returning traveller advice. Check the list of areas and find out more at nhs.uk/coronavirus.
LED headlights. Heated front seats. 2-zone climatronic control. Selected Volkswagen Golf models now have more extras squeezed into them than ever before. And during our golf event from the 14th to the 29th of February, we'll also squeeze in a £500 customer saving and 0% APR.
With Solutions Personal Contract Plan available on stock vehicles only. Ordered by 29th February 2020 and handed over by 31st March 2020. 18 plus subject to status. Excludes all Golf 8, Estate and SV models. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Financial Services. Visit volkswagen.co.uk.
You know what it's like when you can't find your debit card? Panic. That's what it's like. Until you realise, as a Halifax Visa debit card holder, that you can freeze your card on the spot. Control your Halifax Visa debit card with the Halifax mobile app. Easy as.
You can only freeze certain transaction types. Terms and conditions apply.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
On Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet of Volatile Wednesdays. Stocks swinging between gains and losses. S&P down now by 6 points, dropping 0.2%. Investors continuing to digest fresh evidence of the widening coronavirus outbreak. The dollar advanced. S&P 500 dipped after a report said officials in the New York region are monitoring people for exposure. The S&P down 7 now, down 0.3%. NASDAQ up 9, a gain of 0.1%. The Dow down 108, a drop there of 0.4%. 10-year up 13.30 seconds, yield 1.30%. We've got gold up 0.8%, 16.47 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude 48.38 a barrel, lower now by 3%. Recapping, S&P down 7, down 0.2%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Mr. Pellet, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. It is Wednesday. Carol Master, Jason Kelly is off today on assignment. Vince Signorella here guiding me and helping me for the next few hours. And you are listening to Bloomberg.
Mr. Putin, if I'm president of the United States, trust me, you're not going to interfere in any more American elections.
All right, just a snippet of last night's Democratic presidential debate. Of course, that was Senator Sanders in response to one critique, if you will, about who he might be in cahoots with, if you will. There was a lot of fireworks once again. Let's get the details on that. And then also, we're going to fast forward a little bit to President Trump's Eastern briefing, 6 p.m. Eastern briefing on the coronavirus. Ryan Teague Beckwith keeping it all together for us. Political reporter at Bloomberg News. He's in our 99.1 studio in Washington. So, Ryan, good to have you here with Vince and myself. So let's start with the debate. What's the feedback? What did you hear about how it all went down?
Yeah, you mentioned fireworks. Well, if the ninth debate was a debate with fireworks, kind of like 4th of July display that you watch with the kids, where there's a lot of impressive moments sort of spaced out. Last night was more like when they that one where they actually misset the timer and they all went off at once.
That is so true. I really feel like the moderators, it's like somebody herding cats or something.
I haven't heard that many people talk over each other since the last Altman film that I watched.
We get in trouble when we talk over each other here on radio. All right, but assess it. Who came out? Who did well? Who did not?
I think that one interesting thing was that typically the candidates haven't gone directly at Sanders, other than a little bit of the moderate skirmishing with like a Buttigieg saying like maybe it's impractical or something like that. The last night was the first time that they really tried to draw blood. And part of that was that in the past they saw Warren as more of a threat. You'll recall that there was a debate where they all ganged up on Warren. And a part of it is that all of the Democratic candidates need some of Sanders' supporters if they're going to win, and they're very hesitant to engage in him in a way that might hurt that. So what we learned was that Sanders is very good when he is speaking from the heart about the things that he's been saying for 40 years about Medicare for all or whatnot. And he's really good at that stock message. He's very authentic. He comes across and he can talk about them. He really didn't have good responses on some of the other times when he was hit with criticism about some of his past remarks or how he would handle certain things. Like Elizabeth Warren made a very good case for why he needs to get rid of the filibuster if he wants to pass his agenda and the agenda that she partly shares with him. And he simply did not respond. And so I think it showed that there's a weak spot there, and maybe that's just because he's gone through 9 debates before that without anybody really challenging him that way.
Yeah, but as a standout, as Bernie mentioned at the top of the debate, he said, I hear my name coming up a lot today. I wonder why. He clearly is the favorite. He feels he is the favorite. He doesn't feel like he's losing any ground. And, with South Carolina coming up, I'm not sure if you know, and I hope you do because it's cleared up for me. Is 15% kind of the Mendoza line like it's been in other states? Do you have to be above 15% to get any delegates?
It's not really, but for Sanders, that's not really what matters. I think if you want to understand him, the thing you need to sort of realize is that he, for some reason, has the same kind of feeling that Donald Trump has, which is that no matter how good things are going for him, he feels like the underdog. He's won 3 the primaries and caucuses so far, he's the leader in delegates. He's clearly the front runner. He's improving in polls nationally. Nancy Pelosi just said today she didn't think he would hurt down ballot. Harry Reid said today that he could live with him as the nominee. The establishment, parts of the establishment are clearly signaling that they're not going to try to take him down. And yet he had a kind of a chip on his shoulder, because he's not going to do well in South Carolina, and not coming in first there bothers him. It annoys him somewhat, and that clearly showed.
So what about some of the other folks that were up on the stage? And to be fair, of course, Mike Bloomberg is founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP, and of course is one of the contenders there for that Democratic nomination. How do you assess those guys?
Yeah, well, okay, so Bloomberg was most improved player in the same way that, like, my second grader is most improved in soccer. Like, he did a little better than the last performance. He had a couple of spots where he was able to draw blood. This is still a new format for him. He didn't, I don't think he really came out of that having improved his standing. I don't actually think anybody did. Warren was really good at the last debate because she was very focused. This debate, she's still good in small bursts, but she didn't really control the narrative the way she did. I think the Klobuchar kind of got talked over. Biden had flashes there where he'd get kind of angry, and it seemed very persuasive, but his wording is just muddled sometimes, and it was hard to. It was like, wow, he's really passionate, but I'm kind of not following. And all of the candidates suffered from sort of senator-itis, which is where they fail to explain things. They'll be like, well, I sponsored the boyfriend loophole bill, and it's like, what does that mean, right?
There was a fight over who actually sponsored that one.
Yeah, and Sanders hit Bloomberg over his praise for Xi Jinping without mentioning that. He's like, well, at least I'm not friends with Xi Jinping. Well, how many people in the audience are like, yes, okay, I get that reference. I mean, they're all falling on that.
All right, you got to be quick. 30 seconds. What do we need to watch out from President Trump at 6 p.m. today?
Whether or not he's going to appoint a coronavirus czar. That is right now, I think, the thing that would most calm people who feel like there's not really folks in charge of this. And I think that would be the most calming thing. There have been reports that he was going to do it. They've also pushed back, but they might be pushing back just to maintain that element of surprise. Right. With this White House, you never know.
Right, exactly. And I do feel like some of this maybe came out of the debate because it certainly became a topic that was discussed at the debate. Hey, Ryan, always great to have you here. Ryan Teague Beckwith. He's political reporter at Bloomberg News in our 99.1 studio in Washington, D.C. Check him out at Ryan Beckwith on Twitter. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week, and this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are mostly lower, unable to sustain an early rally as the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 71, the S&P 500 down 4, the Nasdaq Composite is up 18. Nestle is taking an extreme measure in the face of the epidemic, telling employees to postpone all overseas business travel until mid-March. The food giant has nearly 300,000 employees worldwide. Pressure is mounting on Nokia to consider asset sales or a merger as competition squeezes its bottom line. Sources say the network equipment maker is working with advisors to consider its options. Nokia is down by about a third in the past year. Etsy is up 2% ahead of quarterly earnings due after the bell. Analysts are hopeful that it will avoid a fourth consecutive earnings disappointment. Etsy has struggled since announcing a free shipping program last year. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. In-depth analysis.
You're listening to the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry she wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time she runs out of milk. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings accounts.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
You can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
That saying, success breeds success, it's true.
Are we seeing any improvement?
Carol Masser and Jason Kelly.
How would you describe your outlook?
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg Business Week, now live on YouTube. Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Vince Signorella on this Wednesday. Jason Kelly is off markets. A bit of a mixed markets, but we're near our low levels of the day. But Vince, Disney got some news after the close yesterday. Kind of surprised a lot of folks. Bob Iger stepping down. Stock's down about 4%.
Stock's down 4%. I got a chart from our CMT, Bill Maloney. We'll talk about it in a few more minutes. Not looking very pretty for the stock going forward, actually.
Great. Looking forward to hearing more about that. Let's get back to your top business stories and an update on that trading day. Here is once again Charlie.
Thank you very much. Yes, down day here. NASDAQ just turning positive, but both the Dow and the S&P minus on the day. Just want to mention, too, with Disney, year-to-date, shares down 14.9%. We'll have more on the Disney story for you coming up right here on Bloomberg Business Week. Equities down for a fifth consecutive day as investors digest a barrage of reports on the widening coronavirus outbreak. The dollar advanced, S&P swinging between gains and losses after a report said officials in the New York region are monitoring people for exposure. Here's where we stand. We've got the S&P 500 index down 4, down 0.1%. The Dow down 74, a drop there of 0.3%, while NASDAQ higher by 15. That is a gain of 0.2%. As for the market backdrop with coronavirus, Katie Koch is global co-head of fundamental equity funds at Goldman Sachs.
So we have CDC on one hand telling us could get a lot worse, and then the president's telling us not to worry, and the reality, like most things, probably somewhere in the middle. So we need to see what kind of impact that might have on growth, and it's very possible we could have another leg down in equity markets.
And, of course, the president speaking on coronavirus tonight, 6 o'clock Wall Street time. Yes, you can catch it live right here on Bloomberg Radio. Tough day for a lot of the home builders. Analysts taking aim at home builders. Raymond James cutting Toll Brothers and SunTrust downgrading D.R. Horton, KB Home, and Pulte, all to the equivalent of neutral ratings from buy. Toll Brothers plunging after the home builders' quarterly sales and profit missed estimates. Right now, Toll Brothers down 13%. D.R. Horton, it is down by 2.2%. KB Home lower by 2.9%, and Pulte down by 2.5%. Speaking of homes, home improvement retailer Lowe's reported earnings this morning. Shares slumping by 4.7%. 10-year yield 1.31%. Gold up 0.7%, $16.45 the ounce. Crude dropping 2.4%, $48.72 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It is indeed. Charlie, thanks so much for the update. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on YouTube and Bloomberg Radio, and this is Bloomberg.
In Bob Chapek, we have someone that not only knows the company very well, having run a few of our really important businesses, including parks and resorts, but he's also someone that we know very well.
I intend to double down on the exact same strategies that Bob has established 15 years ago that have served us so well. The thing I've really taken away from Bob Iger's legacy is get the content right and everything else kind of follows suit.
All right, the two Bobs of Disney. Bob Chapek, the new CEO, took over the spot today. And, of course, Bob Iger, who's been there for a long time in that top spot. The two of them sitting down. Bob, of course, stepping off of that CEO spot, continuing now at the company. So for a couple of years, the two of them talking to Emily Chang last night after that news broke that indeed Bob Iger would be stepping down as CEO. Tunal Moby has followed the media and entertainment world for a long time. He's an analyst over at CFRA Research. He joins Vince and myself on the phone from New York City. So, Tuna, we know for a long time, we've been waiting, for Bob to talk about a possible successor, but I feel like it's been going on for a long, long time. He recently re-upped, his contract. It felt like this was a bit of a surprise, a bit abrupt, especially to see Bob Chapek take over the job today.
That's right, Carol, and that's really what made it surprising for us. We really see this coming, but as you know, the succession issue has been on and off at Disney for quite some time, at times dramatic, but if anything, I think the news does provide some semblance of a resolution to management succession at Disney. The choice of Bob Chapek, who's always been in the mix, was also a little bit surprising, given the emphasis on direct-to-consumer at Disney. That being said, I think Bob Chapek, I've known his career for quite some time. He's a very good foot soldier for the company. He's able to mobilize his compete on the direct-to-consumer and the television businesses. With Bob Iger taking him under the wing for the next couple of years, I think that should provide some comfort level for investors.
Thank you for leading me to our next question. His rise at Disney pretty much came from the park revenue. That's been the big money maker of late, and the Fox integration has crimped some near-term earnings. Does this mean going focus when he says he's going to just follow in Bob Iger's footsteps, if you will, that the more focus will be on the parks? And how do you square that with how he deals with streaming? Will that mean he's a little slower moving just to try to keep revenue steady?
Well, I think the one thing that was pretty clear last night from the call with analyst investors was that there's not going to be any major change in a core strategy. Key strategic pillars remain intact. Bob Chapek himself said as much, and he bought into that view. So I think for him, the next couple of years is going to provide an opportunity to not only run a broader base of businesses, but to get up to speed in the learning curve in terms of the Fox integration and direct-to-consumer. Now, the one thing was clear was that Bob Iger is going to be mostly focused on the creative aspects of the company for the next couple of years, freeing up a lot more time. This to me seems like as smooth a transition plan as there can be, with enough time for both Bobs to figure out things and hopefully ensure a very orderly handover.
Listen, Tara LaChapelle, she writes a Bloomberg opinion column here, and she wrote a column today because she too was like perplexed about the abrupt announcement. I think everybody's like, is Bob Iger okay? Like, a lot of things went through everybody's head. She writes, and this again is an opinion piece, but she says Disney's got a difficult year ahead. And so why should Bob, his legacy be marked by such a tense final chapter? That's the question, she says, right? Between the virus and some other things, maybe we go into an economic slowdown. Just got about 40 seconds left here. Do you think that might have had something to do with the timing?
Carol, I was reading those tea leaves myself, but I did ask Bob Iger himself on the call last night, why now, basically. And it doesn't seem to me that there's any good answer to that, frankly. I didn't come away with any impression as to why this time was any better than any other time to me. So I would take that at face value. I mean, clarity is good, and investors have been clamoring for some clarity on succession. And now we have it, and I suspect we're trying to speculate as to why now. I mean, this is, to me, secondary at this point.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. But nonetheless, his legacy, what he has done at that company is pretty remarkable. All right, Tuna, thank you so much. We always do appreciate the time you give us here at Bloomberg. Shares at Disney, by the way, still down about 4% here at 123 and change a share. So we're seeing the stock under pressure. Tuna Moby, industry analyst at CFR Research, on the phone from New Jersey. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
It's not looking good on the charts, as we said a few moments ago. If I look at the gap that's drawn out for me, it looks like 111.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about the virus and an interesting story in the magazine. Let's get back to World and National News headlines and Bob Moon.
Carol, Vincent, as Health Secretary Alex Azar makes the rounds of congressional committees, he's being urged to ask for still more money to combat coronavirus. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Capitol Hill.
Members of both parties suggest that the latest administration request would prove inadequate. Republican Tom Cole asked Azar,
if you do not have enough money in the $2.5 billion you asked for, you will come back and ask for additional funds. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Our job will be to sell this supplemental to our colleagues on both sides of the aisle.
As for the Democrats, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer is calling for an additional $8.5 billion in emergency funds, including for vaccine development and support for state, local, and international health services. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
President Trump is pushing back today against criticism that his administration isn't doing enough to meet the coronavirus threat. He's preparing to hold a White House press conference with experts from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. You can hear it live here on Bloomberg Radio at 6 p.m. Wall Street time. U.S. Representative Jim Clyburn, the highest-ranking black member of Congress and the kingmaker of South Carolina's Democratic political orbit, on Wednesday endorsed Joe Biden's presidential campaign. The backing could provide a much-needed boost for the former vice president heading into South Carolina's primary.
I know Joe. We know Joe. But most importantly, Joe knows us.
That's right. That's right.
That's important.
Clyburn appeared with Biden at an event in North Charleston. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
Vattel Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor, is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials, so taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure disclosure requirements and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon N.A. Member FDIC.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet.